Do the recording so we can have the replay.
Yep, there we go.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone, to Halen House's Healing Focus for October. I'm Maria Cookson with Cheryl Mills of Halen House, and we want to welcome you today watching or listening live, and also a big welcome to everyone that will be catching the replay. That will be available on the website and a couple other places. This is Halen House's Healing Focus Educational Series. For those who might not know, Halen House we are a nonprofit in Central Oregon whose mission is to provide the education, tools, resources, and support for those healing the root cause and effects of trauma. We believe in the possibilities of healing the body, mind, and spirit to create health, resilience, and wholeness in a person. Through this healing focus series that Cheryl and I do, we want to share some of the wide range of options for tools and resources and practitioners, either locally in Central Oregon or in your area, wherever you may be watching on the World Wide Web. There are many different types of holistic and complementary areas, modalities to heal, and so we want to give educational tools for these. We know that trauma can affect us in really 6 major areas, which is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, nutritional, and social. So if you feel like one or many of these areas are affecting you in a negative manner, then there are definitely options and support for you to help shift to a more healthier way and to build the resiliency in yourself. And so for this month, we are talking with Michelle Goodman, and I will have Cheryl pass it back to Carol.
Thanks, Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
We are pleased to bring you Michelle Goodman from No Mud, No Lotus, and let Michelle tell you about what she does, how she does it, and how it is helpful for healing trauma. And I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She combines her extensive yoga education, training, and teaching experience along with her clinical therapy studies to introduce you to the tools of yoga to help you reconnect with your mind, body, and self. She incorporates yoga asanas, breathing techniques, meditation, and mindfulness to create new thought patterns and processes. This work can create the foundation for the transformation you seek to bring more balance. She brings compassion, empathy, experience, and a deep desire to guide you to reconnect with your authentic self. And she has a whole boatload of certifications. She can tell you about those, and she is Miss Energetic, to say the least. So, Michelle, if you don't mind, would you just start us off and tell us what you do, how you do it, and how it might be helpful for trauma, and maybe even why you got into this?
All right, thank you. I will definitely do that. And first of all, thank you, Maria and Cheryl, very much for inviting me to be here. You know, I've talked to you so much about this, so this is just awesome. And I'm so excited that I'm getting to partner with you guys and a couple other organizations in our own community so that we can help each other, because we live together, really. And so, so that's that. So thank you very much. Let's see. I moved here to Bend about a year ago, a little over a year ago, on wanting to find a place where I can kind of find home and then be able to use my gift, talents, and abilities and all that I have to help people process traumas. And where that comes from is having to process and live life as happily as abundantly I can, still having some of my own traumas and issues still in my tissues, if you will, because you'll hear me say that a lot. is that our tissues store our issues until we acknowledge them, make peace with them, let them go. So that comes into more of that somatic therapy of what I teach, which we will get into. I'll talk more about that in a second. But I guess for the introduction right now is tell you why I do this, like you were asking, and my passion behind it is being a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assaults, and being groomed for human trafficking as a child. That has been very hard to get past, and being able to press all that down and still be able to raise a family myself, which I was able to, had 4 amazing daughters, 2 sets of twins. They're amazing. And being able to create a better life for them from being able to process and learn from and heal from my past and such. And so that drove me a lot, has driven me a lot to reach out to people. I've always loved helping people in some kind of way. I mean, whether it's through nutrition, whether it's through fitness, whether it's through yoga, whether it's through it's just talking, because you know that when we talk, we get things out of our bodies too. And so about 10 years ago, when my oldest twins were seniors and my youngest twins were in 8th grade, I was like, oh my God, in 4 years, I'm going to be an empty nester. What am I going to do? Because see, I homeschooled my girls. I mean, I was involved in all of it. I was the swim mom, the track mom, the church person. I mean, everything, you know, to be involved. And so then I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to be still so young. What can I do to continue as a career? You know, what I can passionately, because I didn't want to work for anybody. I'm so stubborn. But anyway, outside of that, so I started practicing. And in that time, I started practicing yoga, because I've always been kind of a really active person, because that's important to me. I mean, I would ask my girls to go do stuff with me. And they're like, Mom, you like to work out for fun. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, well, we don't. So, but anyway, being physically active so much, and then also being the empathic person I am from the severe trauma I had as a child, I feel people through my body, and it's very evident that that happens. And so my body just hurts a little bit more, and then I'm a little bit more arthritic. So my doctor had said, no more running. So I was like, what? No running? So then I found this hot yoga studio in Vancouver, Washington. And on the side note, at the time, and where part of my story domestic violence comes from, is my ex-husband, who battled with severe PTSD from the military and addictions. And so I was trying to find a way so that I can help bring that balance in my home, because secondary PTSD is very, very real. You think you're crazy, but you're not. Oh, so I had to dig super, super deep. And so when I heard, this is when it was first starting to really come out that yoga really helps with PTSD, you know, and stuff. I was like, well, I want to dig into this. So I kind of gave myself an assignment, and I started going to hot yoga, which kicks your butt. And that is what I wanted, because I couldn't run anymore, not knowing that it was going to transform me in a completely different way. To now, I'm just like, put me on the floor and let me be in restorative poses when it comes to yoga. Don't kick my butt. So anyway, I went to that first class, and it did kick my butt. I couldn't even last the first class, which for me, that's no good. So I had to go back. But anyway, so just pushed me to go back and back. And as I started going more and more and finding relief in my own body because of the trauma, the old injuries, like I live with a broken jaw. I have 33% curvature in my cervical spine. I've got some scoliosis, double hip replacement, knees. I could go on and on. But when you look at me, you're like, what? That's the thing, is you just never know, which is another whole podcast in itself, right? And so anyway, going to the yoga and the infrared heat, it was really starting to help my body, and I started to feel better. But then we started to dig a little bit deeper. You know what happens when you start sitting and you start feeling, right, and breathing and connecting your breath with your body, you start feeling things and seeing things, and you're just like, what's happening, you know? And it can be a little frightful, because why am I seeing these things again? Or why am I feeling this? Not knowing that I had stuffed all that, and it's something that still needs to come out of my body. So practicing for a few months, they're noticing the difference in my body. And then my ex-husband, who had jumped out of aircraft 400 times, his body was messed up a little bit. So I invited him to come, and he started to come. But like me, he started to feel it wasn't something that he wanted to do. So that was But I'm like, well, I'm going to keep going because I'm starting to find some relief. And so within a couple months of practicing, they offered a teacher training. And I was like, exit plan. Remember, I was like, I need an exit plan. I was like, I love doing this. I'm good at it. I understand it. And so I got the go ahead. So that was the beginning of my journey. And as you said, it's been just nonstop. And then, but along this journey, everyone, I recognized more of what, violence, and pain and healing and restoration, just a whole bunch of bumbles of stuff that started to come together, and then trying to find alignment with it and put it into place. And so what I found for yoga is when I started to dig deeper, when I went through the teacher training, is when I found out more about myself. And I was like, wow, connecting my breath, being able to, because when I first started practicing yoga, I couldn't take deep breaths. I couldn't even sit up straight. I'm like, oh my God, my back hurts. You want me to sit for 2 minutes and meditate? I can't even keep my thought pattern straight, but that's what it's for. But what happens is when you sit and you start exploring, you start feeling, and then you're just like, what do I do with this? And then you go on to the next step where you learn how to catch it, check it, change it when that stuff comes up. And when you realize it, and I always recommend, if you're trying to process any traumas, please do it with the mental health practitioner, please, because doing these two together, breath and body and talk therapy, somatic therapy, is so incredibly important that it changes. And so anyway, that was the side note. Digging deeper and deeper into yoga, I found more relief in my body, in my mind, in my thought patterns. And I started to recognize distorted belief systems about myself based on traumas or things that people were saying to me, like in gaslighting and narcissism and manipulation and not realizing that how I was being spoken to was forming how I was speaking to myself. And over the years, going through so much trauma, which in my past, and we'll go back here where the distorted belief system is, hold it here, ladies. I'm going to come back here to when I talk about traumas. When I was 6 years old, I had to witness some bad abuse. I was in a domestic abuse. I had to watch my dad almost kill my brother, which was hard. And then different traumas that happened to me inside that home from the age of 6, birth to 6. And then, which I can go on more with my story more in depth at another time, because it can be a little triggering. And then from 6 to 9, I was in a foster home with 6, 7 other children with a parental that was not engaged at all. So there was more trauma there. And then another home from 9 to 12 where I was adopted, but unfortunately, everyone, I was groomed for human trafficking and I was sold. My brothers and I were sold. And it's one of those things that later on in life, when you start going down and you start searching, you start seeing clues and you start connecting the dots, and then you start seeing, wow, that happened. And that's when you reach outside yourself and you're like, can you please help me process this? And that's where clinical comes in. But and then from 9 to 12. So, and at 9 years old, at 12, I was adopted by another family because we did leave the one that was extremely, extremely abusive. But I was already set by the time I was 12 years old. There was a lot that was already set in stone. And so instead of talking about it and getting help, because no one had listened to me before, when I cried out for help, I just stuffed it. And I was just taught, just give it to God and you're going to be okay. And that's what I practiced for a long time. And I wasn't okay. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to leave my abuser, who in fact was, because of the toxic codependency, was my addict, as he had his addictions. And so it was just cycles. And when I broke away from that relationship, that's when I saw even more the distortion of who I was believing in myself and who I was or wasn't. And then I started using my voice more and I reached out for help. And then I saw, which is this part of what this is about, is recognizing what abuse is. Because I wasn't physically being harmed, I didn't know that I was still being abused, because it affects you to the core by just how you're spoken to. And so learning that through, and at the same time that I left my abuser, I also started my second 200-hour teacher training for yoga, because I'm so in love with it. And it was trauma informed. That training changed my life forever, because it dug deeper down into the pains that I was feeling, and recognizing that emotional pain gets stored in your body and it hurts you, like physically, and affects you on how you make your decisions. Even if your decisions, even in your intention and your lens that you're looking through seems solid, it's still distorted because you've been working through a distortion. So reaching out to the people outside of myself, even my yoga practice, and bringing that clinical in was very, very helpful. And so I believe the somatic therapy is so important for letting go. And so that training in 2017 changed my life on my road to digging more into how yoga, in fact, helps heal the trauma so very much, so you can process it and you become so much more empowered, and it teaches you that you can change your mind about yourself. And one of the greatest things that I've learned, ladies, or everyone that's on here, is that we have a superpower. And when a couple years ago, I worked in addiction recovery, which is a huge challenge for me, because there was an institution with all men, and I was the only female. And so, but it was a challenge for me, and I was determined to do it, because even though I was a female, I fit the job. I was a yoga teacher and I did a damn good job. And that's all that mattered, to where even 4 of my clients over the 2 years were inspired to become yoga teachers, because it changed their lives so very much. That's what's so very important. And so when I was in that spot, I saw so much of how the person that is deep in addictions, because they're trying to press down the traumas that they don't know how to process. But being in that space where, when you're taking those things to press it down so you can't feel it and you have to feel it, wow. When my clients first come on the mat, they're like this. I mean, their knees, they're sitting, we're like this. You want me to breathe? I'm like, yes, I want you to breathe. And they're, but over time and with practice, within 12 weeks, they are sitting up tall. They're taking deep breaths. They're breathing. You see the light in their eyes, because they were able to feel safe within their own bodies and find peace within their own mind, because they did the work on the mat and they started to apply it out in their life. And being in there in that spot and seeing the change over and over, and seeing the relapse, and seeing the stubbornness, and seeing where they get stuck, because having to make peace with your own shit, hence my turn your shit to shine with No Med, No Lotus, it's hard, but it's the only way to heal. Because it's when you sit in that mucky mug, which when you go to my website, you will hear more story of the lotus flower and why I find it so compelling and so parallel to life, or life applicable, is when we're on the mat and we're being helped and guided to trust that we can go to deeper parts of ourselves, which includes going to our hips, going to our heart, going to our core, going to our minds, going to our jaw, our eyes, our nose, our throat, all of this, being able to go to these places and breathe some calm into them. So all of it, just all that rattling, all that chaos can just come to a place of calm. And then you see, this is not mine. I can let it go. Or yes, I've held on to this, but it's not serving me anymore. It's keeping me stuck. It's keeping me from doing what I want to do. It's keeping me from believing in myself and my capabilities, and the fact that I can heal and I can live in a more abundant light despite what has happened to me. Yes, that shit that happened to me was unfair, but I could do something more about that now. And that is why I've come in the message. And one thing that I taught my daughters was to always be yourself. And if people are throwing insults at you, just freaking wipe it off. That's not me. I remember that I taught them that when they were walking to school and the bullies would come over and tease. I'd be like, you don't know what's going on in their home. Not saying you got to take it, but if you can just, those insults, wipe them because they're not yours, you're better. And they said it worked some, so that was good. You know, you got to try different things. And so bringing that all back around, so this little bit of my history and then why I do what I do, and I'm not going to stop. I am not going to stop. And then finding my father abuser, the one that sold me and my brothers, that's pretty scary actually. And facing that, wow, I found you. What do you do with this? Because this happened almost 40 years ago. But me, I have not forgotten. I've healed from it. And it just makes me think of every person I was in contact through all of that are out there that had to live through that are trying to process. So with this and with this interview, with this here and with everything else I want to do, I want to be a voice for those that are in domestic violence situations or have been in them, to just be some kind of light of hope that we can breathe through this, we can change our mind, and we can live a more abundant life. Coming back to that superpower that I learned about when we offer education about addictions and how it affects our whole body, a whole cycle. I mean, everything about us, how traumas can do that and addictions can do that. But when we can recognize this is the superpower. You guys ready? Get your capes on. I'm just kidding. Is this: your brain does not know the difference between a memory and an actual, you're in the moment, or when you're thinking about the future. It does not know the difference. That's what's so powerful. So when you're having a traumatic response or a PTSD moment where you start feeling the flutters in your belly, you start like you want to throw up, your heart's pounding, you're just like you can't breathe, you're having anxiety. Most likely, because in the moment, like here, we're here talking, nothing bad's happening right now, is it? It's not. But what I'm talking about can trigger a memory. And that memory is going to take you back to where you were. And because it's still in your body and you haven't healed from that, you're going to start feeling an upset tummy. You might have to go to the bathroom because now you got to go poo. I mean, I'm just crazy what it does. So where now you're starting to get a headache or you're starting to feel here. Your brain does not know the difference. So you start recognizing, take those deep breaths in through your nose, expand your belly, take some of those and be like, shoulders down, unclench the jaw. No, that's a memory. And the more and more that we are recognized, that's the very simple way to reground yourself. There are so many different ways that we can tools to ground ourselves. But once you recognize, you can connect with the fact that you actually have the power to change your mind and change your mind in the thought press, in the thought as you're processing that thought, reliving it, it's powerful. To where sooner or later, that thought is going to come back and it's not going to trigger you. You're just going to be like, wow, I learned from that. That's what's key, is we can use these moments to learn from it, to empower us in so many ways. And what I found is the more that I'm able to do that with those ruminating thoughts and that screen across my mind, is the more that I stay present, the less that screen keeps coming. But if it does come, I'm using it as opportunities as, what did I learn from that? How can I apply what I've learned from that to my life now? Because now I'm empowered and that's no longer going to keep me prisoner. And recognizing a lot of our suffering is self-suffering because we're refusing to let go, because we feel like we can't let go of it. And trust me, I know. I mean, there's other things like Stockholm syndrome and all those things. Those are very real. I understand those. I lived those. I walked in those. But being able, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's not easy, but it's well worth it if you just have to work a little bit longer to stop a lifelong cycle, not just for you, but for the people around you, especially if you have children. Not knowing that our issue, I always get this move, the issues that are tissues, we do pass those, especially as mothers, because we form them. We can pass these things, some of these energies onto our children. And it's really, really important that we take care of our stuff. And it is possible for us to have peace in the mind, because when we have peace in the mind, where everything begins, every thought begins. And where every thought begins, every behavior begins there. Because first with a thought, and of course we have to have an action. But if we can catch it, check it, change it when the thought first comes, and so we can look at it, reform it, and we can react, neuroplasticity, I'm gonna throw that word out there because that's a huge part in yoga and healing, is that we're able to respond to it in a more healthy, balanced way, because we've learned to catch it, get our breath, get stable, and train ourselves how to respond to that differently in a more powerful way. That's peace of the mind, right? And so that is my goal, peace in the mind. And then we'll get peace in the body. And a lot of our physical ailments will go away too, which, when our bodies are hurting, it's hard to have peace too. But some of that we can take care of. And that is where yoga comes into play too, is when we're able to get on our mat and we can actually sit in a pose for a little while, and breathe into it. You guys will notice as you breathe, when you hold a pose, slowly, as long as you're breathing into it, you start relaxing. I could be here trying to sit up all tall, but then slowly as we're talking, I could start doing this and not realize it, right? Because I'm not present. But then your body's going to start hurting again. So then you just bring yourself back. But it's recognizing that we're making those changes in our bodies by connecting with our bodies. And one of the things that we taught our clients when I worked at Treehouse Recovery in Portland, which I absolutely love everything that they do, that has taught so much for me, is actually a whole bunch of stuff just came to mind, everything that I've learned. But basically, you guys, it's just being able to create space for ourselves, even if it's just a few minutes a day, and then reaching out and finding different ways and different techniques. It's not going to work the same for everybody. I mean, some people like to do box breathing, 4-part box breathing. That can give me anxiety. So I do 3-part breathing. So there's different things that we can do in different ways that we can process our thoughts. And that is what I want to do, is because I know what it's like to be almost stuck. We can make our body our prison rather than making it our paradise. And in the end, or in the moment, we do have a choice that even though it's a freaking shitstorm going on around us, we can still change our mind about how we see it and how we respond to it. That's what's empowering. And that is how we start getting out of cycles of the same shit show over and over. It's like the hamster wheel, right? You guys, I think I've talked to both you guys about this, is you get on that hamster wheel, that's life, right? And then one day you're like, I'm done, and you get off, all right? It hurts. It hurts when you get off, because it's like tumble, 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 tumble. Because you're breaking out of a pattern. You're breaking out of what your body knows what to do, what your brain knows what to do, what everything knows what to do, where you've trained it. And you get off, but then you tumble out, and say we're in a desert, right? And you tumble off of that hamster wheel, and you get out and you just dust yourself off. You're like, whew, right, I'm free. And then this is the fun part, right? And you look around and there's no hamster wheel, but there's no path. You're like, what do I do now? That's where you got to trust yourself that it's better. And then you just start taking one step at a time. And what do those steps looks like? First of all, reaching out to someone, right? Or changing your mind, or starting yoga, or starting fitness, or whatever it is into your life, how it applies to you. But it's one step at a time that you start going, right? You start going, you're like, oh, this is feeling good. And then of course, something happens and you're just like, it's a dead block, but that's when you take all your tools, your techniques, your breathing, and all right, what's next? And it may be totally changing your mind again, right? And then your brain goes, no, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to torment you. I'm going to throw more ruminating thoughts at you. I'm going to throw more imposter syndrome at you. I'm going to throw all of this at you. But that's where the support and community comes in. And that is what I'm trying to build here too. So when you are processing this and you're confused, reaching out to other people that you can trust is really important too, especially when you change your mind, you start changing your life. And so then start looking for other pathways and means that's going to support your more empowered decision for you. That's important too. And if you fall, shake it off. Love yourself. Quite honestly, I don't like the word relapse. Did I just say the word I don't like? Because sometimes it can be so, depending on your imposter syndrome or depending on that lens that you look through, it can be harder. So I'm just saying, you know what? You tried, brush it off and tried, again, I mean, the light bulb, it took 1,199 times to invent the light bulb. But now look, we all have light. It is worth the great sacrifice. And so that is what I'm about here. So I offer a lot of classes that are like not movement, because the world kicks your butt every single day. So I'm trying to create space where you can come and train with me, so I can send you out so that you're living life off the mat, where I can help you feel safe in your body and in your mind, so you can let the distorted belief systems and the traumas and just anything that doesn't serve you anymore, and the confidence to do those things and to make those steps, and knowing that when you are healing yourself, it's not just you, it's your ancestry, it's your legacy, it's empowering, and it's one world at a time. And just like this, me sharing, I know you guys are inspired. You can't not be inspired. And we take that inspiration, we take it, we embody it, and we take steps forward still to do that. And there are moments when we can lose hope, but also recognizing that the strength within us, because of where we are today, shows that we have all the power, right? That empowerment. So that is a little bit of no mud, no lotus, turn your shit to shine. I love saying it because it's so true. And when that comes from is the lotus flower. You guys know the beautiful lotus flower that grows in the mucky, nasty water. And how the story goes is that's the only place, because of all the bacteria and all that, is the only place that the beautiful lotus flower can grow. But it gets pushed up by all that just muck, but there's still nourishment in the muck to the top. And when it comes up, it's this beautiful flower that we take like obsessively pictures over because they're so pretty, right? And then we post those and we look at the beautiful flower. And then being able, though, to turn that around and look at yourself as you are the lotus flower yourself, and that life and the shit and the chaos and even the abuse and even our own addictions from that, trying to suppress that trauma, all of that mucky muck has still brought us where we are. And we are so incredibly beautiful and empowered. And what's really cool is the lotus flower goes back down at the night and comes back up on purpose. So that's like us going to our dark night of the soul, where it's cold and dark and doesn't seem sure. But in that space, we're able to find the courage and the strength and the love and the compassion for ourselves to push ourselves up into that belief system that is empowered. Hence that beautiful lotus flower, right? So that is where that turn your shit to shine. I like to think of myself as a pink lotus flower. So whatever, but that means differently things to each of us, but it's still empowering. And the thing is recognizing that the more we talk and build community and we share, the more we recognize that a lot of us are sharing the same stuff. We just don't talk about it. I could tell you the last 4 years, since I really dug into yoga and making this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is help people. What I hear, and it's sad, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad. It makes me mad. It makes me angry. But it also just like, thank you for sharing your story. So let me show you, let me tell you mine and how I've been able to overcome this. It may or may not, you may be able to process a different way, but you guys, there are so many people still hurting from the same stuff, and they don't want to hurt anybody else, but they don't realize that they are, because they haven't been able to change their own behaviors, because they don't know there's another way. And that's where community and how we come in to help each other. Hence No Mud, No Lotus, and me joining and being a part of Halen House. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I don't know if you can see the chat or not, but there's a comment that says, "This is so beautiful, Michelle. I got the chills. Thank you." And if anyone on here has any questions for Michelle, this would be a good time to ask them. You can just unmute yourself, or you can put something in the chat. It's up to you.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and no, that was beautiful. That was beautiful, and so many like tidbits and reminders. And I just want to do a reminder for everyone that is either watching today or listening or on the replay. You know, if you do feel the need, I mean, you're not alone, and definitely when you're going through some of these things, and opening up your petals and or the onion layers is another metaphor. You know, and if you need professional help, please reach out for that. Um, and but there is lots of support out there. And thank you, Michelle, for being part of that and realizing you're so much more than what, you know, what some of the growing up and the conditioning and all that. You're right. There's unfortunately a lot of people that don't realize that, so they stay stuck for a good part or maybe all their lives. So, and we are so much more. So, I thank you for that.
We are, and then sometimes it is hard watching the people that are stuck. It is.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I did learn was when I'd only been working at Treehouse for a short amount of time, my coworker Brent said to me, because we were evaluating, you know, each other on how we're doing on working with our clients, and he says, "Michelle, don't rescue them." I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's what I'm here for." They're like, "No." They have to sit in their own and come through it, but you're here to help guide them, but don't take ownership of it, which can be really hard when you're watching people that you care about go through this. But on me and my own experiences, honestly, the growth I had was when I had to go down by myself and come back up. Honestly, I had to be honest, you know, and that the only way to be honest was for me to see that myself. You could tell me what I was doing, you know what I mean? So that is, it can be hard, but that's where support comes in too. So there is support if we're having to watch a loved one go through this and not being able to pull themselves from it, but to help you as a family member or a loved one or a friend so that you can support them in the best way that you can. And sometimes that's, I mean, without them being in serious direct harm, you know what I mean? But them really trying to process and work stuff out and just send them that support and love and just be available for when they're able to reach out to you sometimes too.
Yeah, no, you're correct. And then also to remind, I mean, we have to, especially as women, remind ourselves a little extra that because we have been taught so much the people pleasing and all that, and then not to say anything, many of us. I mean, men do too, but I think with the maternal instinct, the people pleaser and all that stuff. And so how to shift that and not be trying to be the helper, but show the empowerment.
Yes. Well, allow them to reach in that and grab it and embody it themselves, because you cannot hand anyone empowerment. Or you can, but whether they take it or not, that's up to them. To embody it is what's key. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
So no questions from anyone so far. Michelle, do you mind just talking a little bit about the different classes or services that you offer and how people can get in touch with you, where you're located, maybe show them your space?
Oh, well, absolutely, sure. So yes, what I do is I offer more like yoga nidra restorative classes because, like I said, you can go out to life will kick your butt. Honestly, I just want to help people reconnect with themselves through their breath. So here at No Mud No Lotus, in this space that I'm renting right now, let me see if I can turn my camera around real quick so that you can see a little bit. What? So here's the front. So here's the front, and we come around here. Get up. Here we go. So as you come, so here's my space. And so what I'm trying, and here's where I'm sitting here, is so when you come in, and I have bolsters and yoga mats and tools so that we can sit down and get comfortable, because sometimes, sitting on the mat or on the floor isn't even always comfortable. But what I want to do is get people in kind of like you're going to take a nap, get you comfortable to take a nap. And then what I do is through guided meditation and some ambient music and just feeling safe and helping you to connect through your breath, through the through 3-part breathing to activate your parasympathetic, your peace, your calm, your restore, and that place where activating the parasympathetic, you're able to relax the mind, relax the muscles. And so what I try to help you do is be able to be relaxed in your own body. So I do that through restorative yoga, and then also yoga nidra, which is a longer guided meditation, but it takes you to every place in your body because our tissues store our issues, right? And so with our breath and our guided meditations are usually something that has to do with letting go on so I use a lot of yoga philosophy in my classes, especially the yamas and the niyamas, which is in the part of the 8 limbs of yoga, which if you haven't read the book, read the book. But what I do is I like to go through each one of the yamas and the niyamas because they're like external and internal observances. So one of them is Savadhyaya, which is self-study. How do we study ourselves, right? So I go through series where we sit and we first learn to connect with our breath, and we go in and we notice like what's going on in our head. What's going on here? Are we clenching our jaw? Do we purse our lips? Do we do this? I mean, different things that we do that is affecting the balance and the calmness and alignment in our bodies. Because when you're tensed here, it goes to your neck, goes down your back, right? Lower back pain, sciatica, and stuff like that. So much of it is just from other points, but it is on how we are thinking. So if I can help create a space where you can feel safe enough, where you can go into your body and, pretty much tackle or accept those uncomfortable parts, so that when you go back to your space off the mat, you've learned how to be able to process that. So that is what I do with the yoga nidra and the restorative yoga. And I also offer just come in, let's set intention, let's meditate, and let's talk about it. I like doing that too, because I'm a little neurodivergent, so I got to get it out of my head. I got to talk about it. I think a lot of people are that way. We got to talk about it. And so being able to apply Savadhyaya on self-study, what does that mean? Well, let's say about ahimsa, like harming, non-harming. You guys realize that we harm ourselves by our imposter syndrome or thinking we're lesser than who we are? Or when you walk into a room and you're in a really bad mood, how you can go into a room and you can totally shift it with your energy, and how you're harming other people with that, right? I mean, it's just things that we don't realize that we do, not to be harsh or cast blame on ourselves, but just recognize, I could probably change my behavior a little bit and it can shift things. That's what I'm trying to offer people. And then I also offer, when I just talked about not offering that kick butt yoga, I am actually starting to do that over at JP Fitness. I'm able to contract out of there, and I do personal training there too. But I also can take some yoga poses, functional fitness, and weights if you want to go a little bit deeper or challenge yourself, as in tapas, which is another yama, right? Sorry. And that is that burning, like self-discipline and burning desire, motivation. How do we tap into that? Sometimes we don't realize it. How do we get one more round in, or how do we just get through one more conversation, or just one more whatever we need to do? It's about going in here and figuring out what is keeping us from tapping into our burning desire. And I don't know, and I got a little bit of ADHD over here, so I got a lot of slow starting stuff. I'm like, well, how can I get past this so that I can get my stuff done and be real with myself, right? On how much I can actually participate more in my life, tapping into those things and getting rid of the distorted belief systems or imposter syndrome I'm talking about on why I can't possibly do something. And then we're also going to be offering some art. I'm so excited. Someday, Maria, going to be offering some art here. As I made this, here, I'll show you this. I did this the other day. I sat down, see my little lotus? I'm so excited. I sat down to do some art therapy because I was trying to process a little bit more things emotionally.
Mm.
And I sat down starting to paint a heart. That was not happening. I scratched that out because what I was doing is I was trying to mimic someone else too. But then when I got done and I started breathing and just letting the paintbrush go, I drew this beautiful lotus flower that actually looked like the flower that I had tattooed. But I didn't realize that I was doing that. But it was like, wow, there's meaning to that. And so I want to offer that here. And plus, one of my daughters is an artist, and it would just be so cool to have that as a part of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
then
that's beautiful because
Mhm.
art that's a huge part of how to process things. So
And I know that's your love. So I just love that.
yeah.
100%. So and then also what I'm doing is my biggest audience, honestly, that I'm looking for is partnering with mental health and clinical addiction recovery so that we can work together through somatic therapy to help people heal. These are people in my community. I see them at the grocery store. I see them at the pool. I see them in passing. And I may never talk to them, but their energy is still crossing with mine as mine is theirs. And offering different ways or different modalities and finding different ways, like I said, to process out of our the issues that are still in our tissues is so very important. And when we change our mind, we change our life big time. Big time. But sometimes it takes a little bit of, there's a lot of mind changing and then finally getting to the, like I call it like you're recalibrating, when you get on the mat, you're recalibrating and you're trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do. Most of us, I mean, I'm 51 and I'm like, who am I going to be when I grow up? Right? Because there seems to be layers of us rather than just trying to enjoy the journey. So many of us are trying to get somewhere else because we're not happy where we are. And it's important to have contentment but without complacency. It's important to be content. It's important to be able to fulfill and make that happiness where you are now, because it's not going to be there when you get there if you haven't already tried to make it yourself. That is something that I've learned. And so when we're able to start believing more in ourselves and having peace in the mind, we're happier. And so in that, as we're thinking about what we're going to do, we're putting more higher vibrating energy into that, more optimism, more abundance, more fulfillment, right? Is what we all want. And we all do better when we're in good moods, right? Especially when they're real, when the mood is real. Because it's an energy. I mean, from what I understand, our energy can go out 20 feet around us, our own energy. So when we're out and about and we're intertwining with people, we're picking up other people's stuff. That's how we're connected. I mean, we're just and so in that, we're also picking up other people's thought patterns and energies and stuff like that, or ideals. When you get into a crowd and there's they start doing some protest or something and you've never really thought about it, but you start listening and you're in that energy and the energy gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden you're at the front going, rah! You go home like, now what am I doing? You know what I mean? That's how contagious energy can be, and so being able to but working with clinical too, it's not so much for me to work mostly with their clients, but teach them how they can bring the somatic into their own practice to help their clients, so that they're got them on their mat going, all right, let's process. Right. And so that's where my big part is, and then trying to reach as many people as I can for inspiration because why not?
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Thank you. And
Yes.
I so appreciate what you guys are doing. And when I read about and I'm talking to you guys, I'm like, yes, let's partner up. This would be so good. And it's so important for us to do this because synergy, it's all bringing all of what we know together for a greater purpose. I mean, we're a team, you know, and we're a powerful team, dream team. Right. And that's not only just that, it's like the more we heal ourselves, our children heal, and then their children heal, and then their children. So we can make the world a better place, but it's one world at a time, and that's the world within ourselves, right? To bring peace there first, and then that pours outside of us. And then the whole world, just a goof.
That's great, Michelle. So how does someone find out about your classes and how do they sign up?
Okay, so I am here in Bend. If you go to No Mud, No Lotus, LLC.offering that is my website, but I could also link I think you have it on this announcement. That's how you can sign up for my classes. I do encourage people to sign up because I am limited on space. So that's good to know. Let's see. And then JP Fitness is just up the road. You'll find either one of them. Just Google it out. I show up. It's so fun, you guys, because on the Google, when it tells you where you're going, it says no mud, no lotus, LLC. Turn your sheen to shine. So doesn't quite say it. I think it's so cute. Anyway, that's part of who I am. I'm a high energy person, but I also know how to tone it down. But I will be your best and biggest cheerleader 100%. 100%.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else you want to add before we go?
I don't think so. Oh, and sorry, yes, let me add this. Also, what I offer is teacher trainings, yoga teacher trainings. I'm building one that's trauma informed right now, and that will be coming out. I have workshops coming up. I have some Reiki workshops, which, by the way, thank you for asking again, is I have one gal here that does do Reiki. She's going to be doing Reiki, which I'm so excited, which is energy healing and balancing. And the workshops are going to be, I'm going to try to have one every month. They're going to be hopefully starting next month, and then teacher trainings. I think it's really important to be really, really educated in yoga because of how vulnerable we ask our clients and students to trust us. So it's really important to be able to understand, guide, and help with compassion when you're asking people to go to such deep parts of themselves. So I'm not saying I know everything, because I know I don't. I have so much to learn, but I do know I've learned a lot, and it has helped. And so that is what I want to do, is continue to just spread. I want to be the wildfire, if you will, on hope and change. You know,
Nice.
Not just a match, not just a bonfire, a wildfire. I believe, just as this pandemic we just had, I believe healing, same thing. Why not have a pandemic of healing? Because if I say why not, you cannot give any objection on why not to have a pandemic of healing. And so that is what I want to do with this.
Awesome.
Oh, that made me a little emotional.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
an awesome goal. And I think Maria and I share your passion that way. You're also on Facebook and Instagram.
Yes. Same thing, No Mud, No Lotus, but you have to, it's LLC, No Mud, No Lotus, LLC. Because I noticed there were some more out there. But of course, if you followed up with my little, what would that be? My little mantra, turn your shit to shine, it'll show up too.
Okay.
And then you'll see me.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you. No, I'm going to zip it. If anyone has any questions, I would love to answer them. But otherwise, everyone knows I got the gift of gab. I'm a teacher.
Awesome. Well, they know how to find you, and we certainly really appreciate your being on here with us, Michelle. I think you're certainly going to ignite some interest in your classes and what you do through this talk. So if anyone knows anyone else who might be interested in this particular topic, this is being recorded, so it will go onto our website. You can just direct them to halenhouse.org and put Michelle in there, and this will pop up so they can watch it too.
And
So,
I'm going to go ahead and put it on my website too, so that it can
Okay.
get linked to YouTube after it's recorded. You have it.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. And we're on Facebook and Instagram too. So just
Right.
with the website. So
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you. And
So
thank
good
you
to see
everyone for being here. I'm sorry I didn't get to see you, but thank you so much for coming.
Thanks everyone.